but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Are you spending a lot of time looking for setups and struggling for faster lap times? Are you tired of searching online for answers? Would you like to get setups, analysis and tutorials from some of the best sim racers in the world like Ralph Haller, Mitchell de Jong, Martin Krunker, Josh Rogers and many more? If so, virtualracingschool.com is the answer you've been looking for. VRS data packs provide hot laps from our professional coaches for you to analyse and replicate. They provide tutorials that walk you through the fastest laps and what the pros did to achieve the best times. And they provide the setups you need to ensure your car is competitive in both oval and road racing. If you're ready to get faster and reach more podiums sooner than later, just go to virtualracingschool.com and sign up for a free account today.
A very good evening everybody and welcome back to Thursday nights here at Evolution Sim Racing ahead of round 4 of our GT3 Season 8 Championship here tonight for our 1 hour feature race at Road America. So the forecast on the horizon is a little bit changeable. Rain expected to arrive at the circuit toward the latter stages of the event tonight, so we can expect a fairly dramatic end to the session, which could see some drivers exchanging those key positions both on the track and in the championship order before everything is said and done tonight. So as always, you join myself, Joseph Glass, alongside Mr. Dara Thacker here this evening for all the action in Split A, covering our Elite and Pro Division drivers. But don't forget, we also have Split B over there, also on the Evolution Sim Racing YouTube channel, hosted by the wonderful Mr. Paul Walsh, so be sure to check that one out as well. So Dara, we're back again, another round, another week, second run out here in the States so far this season, at a very enjoyable circuit, I think, for both us, from our viewing point in the commentary box, and then also from the perspective of our drivers too, but still a lot for them to consider, especially as they see those rain clouds rolling over the circuit a little bit later on tonight.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of the drivers, the rain is going to present a little bit more of a challenge and maybe make us go a little bit away from that norm that we've got ourselves used to in the last few weeks. But it's definitely an opportunity for a lot of drivers to be able to step up at a track that I think many of these guys will know quite well. It's a circuit that is very well versed for GT3 racing. So yeah, I would not be surprised to see a few interesting names towards the top, but then again, the consistency of those towards the top of the championship and qualifying has been scary. It'd be surprising to see, I think, too many get involved in that top fray that we haven't really seen already this season.
Yeah, I think qualifying critical, of course, not only in that 1 hour format, no opportunity for that reverse grid position, and also with that rain coming in, you really need to try and get yourself in a good starting position in case the pace changes as the track becomes a little bit damp could become quite wet actually toward the end. Of course, you've got to keep an eye out for that horseshoe sort of turn 9 and 10 area, of course, and the kink through Canada corner. Before that, the kink through turn 11, of course, flat out in the dry. It'll be a little bit harder to navigate once the rain begins to fall. We could see a couple of drivers just veering off into the barrier. Hopefully not all the way into the barrier, but it would get pretty tricky through that second sector. And then through the trees down toward Canada corner will be a tricky braking zone. But as you rightly say, Dara, a track which ESR's driven a lot, iRacing arrives to a lot in this GT3 class. So I think most of our guys will be ready for what's in store tonight.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see too many drivers getting caught out by elements of this circuit that they may not otherwise have seen. You know, I think even the Road America iRacing special events coming up this weekend, so I think if a few drivers are looking to get themselves in on that, they'll have a little bit more practice anyway. This week and last week particularly, drivers will have got themselves well versed, and it isn't the most difficult circuit to learn. It is relatively basic in terms of its configuration. Some corners are trickier than others, of course, but it's pretty easy to get to grips with compared to some of the other tracks that we will have been to this season. The likes of Mugello is one of those, but definitely a good track for racing. We always see some great overtakes at this circuit.
Yeah, you're right. I think the circuits that we've been to so far, aside from the Red Bull Ring, have few and far between when it comes to overtaking opportunities, but plenty around this place. Lots of 90-degree lefts, lots of 90-degree rights, and of course a few sends that could be gone around the outside, potentially into the carousel, and if anyone's feeling brave, maybe through the kink as well. So plenty of opportunity on the cards, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of those moves coming in the early stages. And then, Dara, if some people have that race pace in the wet, that could be a really great opportunity for those guys to get on that outside line where there is more grip and try and make up a few last gasp efforts. In the final, what do you think, maybe 20 minutes or so, I think will be when we have some serious wet running, and that could be the time for those guys who've put in the practice to hopefully make it pay off.
Yeah, it would be a very good opportunity for all of them. And I think it really will show when we get the rain falling who's been able to, not necessarily practice, but adapt to those conditions the best, because it will change around what we see in terms of the order. And of course, it's difficult to really set up the car for a race that will be half wet, half dry. So it's going to be really interesting. We're only going to be able to see it as we go through into the race, I think. Which drivers have, almost set themselves up in the best way to go racing, and it's going to be an interesting balance to find, and drivers I think will have been trying to walk it, but no one's ever going to be fully happy in either the wet or the dry conditions, and that's really part of the challenge, isn't it?
Absolutely right then. So in a short while then we'll see which drivers have set themselves up for a dry race or for a wet race in just a moment, but first we'll see how the drivers have set themselves up in the championship, of course. So as always, a quick mention to our sponsors, the four of them covering the GT3 Season 8 Championship. Kame, of course, our trophy supplier, could never do what we do without the support of the Kame team, so big thanks to those guys as always. GP2 returning once again. They are a very common, familiar name here on the sponsor sheet, so big thanks to Hussein Sarakadesla for his continued support of the series. And then the VRS team and the Trophy AI team, two of our headline sponsors, new to the series, new to the league. Of course, we've seen them just in the intro a little bit earlier on. So VRS, the virtual racing school, offering hot laps, track guides, setups and hardware for all of your sim racing needs. And then Trophy AI, a little bit of a modern take on all of that with an artificially intelligent system which will help you get faster around a track. And I think, as we said, this Road America circuit is a pretty good one for a beginner, pretty easy to get to grips with, and one where I think Trophy AI would be pretty handy. I'm telling you, just brake a little bit later here, turn in a little bit earlier there. I haven't used it, but the videos that I've seen seem very good, so be sure to check all of those out. Links are in the Discord server, and of course you can find them all on the socials and on Google and whatnot, so check all of those guys out. So without further ado, let's take a look at the standings ahead of round 4. So 3 rounds are all said and done, and already it is advantage RDS8. 3 of the drivers inside the top 3 in the elite standings. Luke Lucchese leads the way then. He's on 252 points. 4 podiums from 5, of course. And yeah, he's really not letting up. He's been right toward the front, right toward the sharp end of the championship since the beginning, and that, obviously, his position gives you everything you need to know. Tristan Dennebrigge has been right behind him as well. 30 points the difference, not an awful lot, but it is difficult for Tristan to overtake that if these two continue in this run of form, where Luke seems pretty unbeatable at the moment. Justin Eloff, he's been there as well. A few less fortunate results than his teammates. However, that P2 finish this time last week really has helped him overcome the margin slightly. However, Tech Plurg for the Vulcan Motorsports Gold Team, the leading Vulcan driver, just 1 point away from that top 3, of course, where the trophies are to be won. William Humphrey, he's been there or thereabouts as well. He had an incident going into turn 6 at the start of race 2 last week, which demoted him all the way down to P17. That's dropped him out of the top 3. Still inside the top 5. A bit of a fight on his hands if he wants to keep up with the likes of Eloff and Plurg ahead. Jimmy Vyman in the Porsche for Sim Republic. In fact, you'll see Sim Republic and the Vulcan Fasteners are pretty much the only 2 teams that we have inside the top 12 outside of RDSA, DDK and Vulcan. So William and Jimmy doing very well to be in the mix for sure. Jimmy just that 1 podium and has just got himself inside the top 10 on 1 other occasion, enough for him to have 145 points after 5 rounds of racing. Next, it's the 3 DDK Racing Team E drivers of Raz Harper, Sam Derbyshire and Kevin Daniels, of course, very close once again to one another. The Acura and the Corvettes doing well, and we see them battling their way through the Vulcans and the RDSA drivers on a regular basis. So keep our eyes out for those 3 teams tonight, because it's been getting pretty intense, and I'm sure that intensity will continue for some time. Luke King next up, the 4th of the RDSA drivers, just inside the top 10, needs to get 100 points. I'm sure he'll do that tonight if he's with us in the session. Then Quinta Verdonk joint in 10th with 99 points as well. Missed the first 2 rounds though, so he's done very well to keep up with Luke King in only 3 races. Then Ignas Vinchazevsky's, I think, Dara, we would say the man who's been arguably the most unlucky driver so far this season. He's qualified so well in every single race event, but you can see there the points don't really add up to the quality that Ignas has brought to this championship, of course. So a P20, a DNF, a P13 and just 1 podium. His best run out in the second race last week around Mugello. Definitely keep our eyes out for the Acura here, because he definitely has the pace to be right toward the front. So far though, he hasn't been able to take the checker where he would hope to have done.
Yeah, and I think he'll be looking to improve on that form a little bit more coming into tonight. Over in the GT3 Pro class, the second of the 2 classes here on A-Split, it's been a pretty good season so far by the Finn Kalle Leskinen, who has a very handy lead. He's got a couple of wins and a couple of second places as well, just to keep himself ticking over in the championship, and he finds himself on a very nice 262 points. Chris Jennings has been trying to run him close this season, or at least in the last couple of rounds, because you can see that after a couple of drives outside the top 10 to start the season, a bit of a comeback for him to the top 2 in the championship, and Chris Jennings will be looking to go after that championship lead here tonight. Davey Daniels, again, not as lucky in Mugello last week, dropping all the way down to P22 in the second race after a win in the opening race, so unlucky for him, but still P3 in the championship, still there or thereabouts. Joshua Cohen, the only other driver, or actually, I know, one of the other drivers with a win this season, he's up in P4, and he's, comfortably in that battle for second place. You have a big gap back then to Biagio Cutrale, 2 second places for him. It's been bit of a mixed bag in terms of results, but it means that he is in the top 5 and looking like he could be able to march forward. David Hutchinson and Alex Fretwell, 2 McLarens in 6th and 7th with a podium and a 3rd place each. They've been looking okay this season, but again, very up and down. Inconsistency being the key word in this championship in the opening couple of weeks. Lorenzo Gorgetto, the highest ranked driver without a podium, his best finish is P7, but he finds himself in P8 in the championship, just over that 100-point threshold. Victor Van Zeiss, really damaged by a DNF in the second round. He finds himself on 102, but still definitely in the conversation to get himself just that little bit higher up. Joshua Ness rounds up the top 10. He's just ahead of Adam Atherton, who, after getting points in the opening couple of races, hasn't been seen since, and his 90 points showed that he had some pace under him. He's going to have to come back if he wants to keep up any kind of championship charge. And then Evan May, running out the top 12. The BMW driver almost picking up where Adam Atherton left off. You combined them, they'd be, I think, P5 in the championship together. But as it is, P11 and 12 together. We'll see if Evan May can get up the order in his home race tonight.
Yeah, Adam Atherton, one to watch out for. He hasn't attended the last couple of weeks, but when he does, he's had some pretty strong returns. And of course, the likes of Chris Jennings toward the front. He had a very good time in the championship last season. This time, it's a fight against Mr. Leskinen instead of Mr. Fretwell. So let's see what Alex can do. One podium for him, but didn't have the best time of it this time last week. And of course, lots of new names to keep our eyes on. And then, before we head to trackside, before we head to qualifying, let's take a quick look at how the team's championship lines up. So, as you might have expected, the RDSA team of Tristan Darbliger, Luke King, Luke Lucchese and Justin Aloff lead the way, 474 points for those 4 drivers, and followed not so closely by the RLH drivers. Alex Fretwell, James Pallow and Wesley Van Ren lead the way in the battle for P2, which is shared all the way down really to 7th place between the Axis Sim Sports teams of Matthew Croft, Parkhurst, Muntian, then Jennings, Ellis and Cohen. We've got the 4-man team, the Camé GP2 Porsche drivers, Scott Kostrick, John Ludbrook, James Bostock and Gareth Newton in Split B. Then it's a Split A team made up of Quinton Verdonk, Ignas Vinjasevskis and Tiek Plurg for Vulcan Motorsports. Gold rounding out the top 6. Still in that 300-point run, it's the DDK team of Sam Derbyshire, Kevin Daniels and Raz Harper, of course. All 6 of those drivers inside the top 12 in the elite class, which is very, very competitive indeed, but shows how competitive this team's championship is, with both of those guys not even inside the top 5. Then it's the final of the 3 Axis Sim Sports teams of Thomas Pugh, Josh Ness and David Hutchison inside the top 8. Hayden Phoenix Miller and Grant Miller for Phoenix Racing in P9. Then it's the second of the GP2 teams. Cowlishaw, Noel Brown, Aston and Fox. Cowlishaw the only A-split driver there, so he's responsible for bringing home those points. Behind them, the LS Racing team, the Nifos Glastic Racing team, VRT, Vulcan Motorsports Silver, Verano Academy, Simcast, the Moonshiners, Vulcan Fasteners, MJK, and the second DDK team rounding out the top 20. So as we cut to trackside then, we're just in time for the start of qualifying. And I'm not going to give anything away, Dara, but there was a clear runner at the front of that ending practice session. So let's see if that is replicated at all. And while we move, we'll ride on board with this man who we just talked about in the build-up there so fondly, Ignas Vinchesevskis. How is his qualifying going to be today? We've timed this near perfect, Dara. If you'd like to take us on a run around this circuit, I'm sure Ignas will do a pretty good job at showing us exactly how you can nail a lap, especially a qualifying lap, around the Road America circuit.
Yeah, and it's a circuit that, as we've said, drivers may know well, and it's not one that will provide too much of a challenge in terms of getting around. It's not got too many corners. Turn 1, pretty much a 90 right-hander to open that. Very fast, though, so it will be difficult for drivers to necessarily keep it within track limits on the opening lap, and we will see drivers drift wide in the opening stages. There's a little bit of a kink at 2. This is officially turn 3, the second of the 290 rides, getting you onto this back straight where you go through the moraine sweep underneath the cheese bridge, which does go over the track just about here. You're going to be focusing on trying to make a move somewhere at the end of this straight. One of the prime overtaking opportunities here at Road America is down this little hill at turn number 5. It's tricky though, because as you can see, the track narrows on the right hand side and really pinches you up with the grass and the gravel appearing. You rise up over the crest once again before just about finding turn 6, the turning point at the crest. You really have to be careful. It is very much blind through there. 7 is the little flick right that you can take with as much speed as you dare. Then you run down the hill once again into turn number 8. It's a left-hander which has seen many drama throughout the years in the real world, but we haven't seen too much here tonight. Then it's turn 9 and turn 10, the carousel. It just keeps going and going, the right-hander where you just have to feather the throttle as much as you can just to keep that minimum speed up and keep the lap time ticking along very nicely indeed. Once you're out of there, all you can think of really is the kink, turn 11. It's the fastest corner on the racetrack, and it's an absolute flick through there. If there's any kind of collision up in front, especially during the rain, we could see a little bit of a pile-up down there, and it could get a little bit tricky. Through Kettle Bottoms we go in towards Canada Corner. Another good overtaking opportunity at the right-hander. We see a lot of drivers try and make moves here, particularly towards the end of the race, before coming up to the final couple of turns. Turn 13 as this little left-hander rising over the top of the crest once again before the final corner at 14, which is yet another corner of trying to keep that minimum speed up and rotating the car through as much as you can. And then it's just that long run up to the line. It is very long here. You have to rise over the crest, past the pit entry, and then some until you get to that flag tower before you can see a lap time, which is such a long wait. But for Ignace, his first lap time is going to be a 2-minute 3.3. I think that's going to be relatively competitive in this race, in this qualifying session.
Yeah, well, it's his first lap time and potentially even his only lap time. He reset back to the pit lane. We'll keep eyes on that, see if he comes back out. It's been immediately beaten by over 0.2 of a second by Mr. Luke Lucchese, our provisional pole sitter, nearly 0.8 down to Paul Cowlishaw. Let's see what Mr. Lucchese has up his sleeve then as he exits the first couple of corners now down the long run. Oh, and Lucchese has stopped as well. I wonder what's going on there. Luke King puts a time in good enough to get on the second row of the grid. Meanwhile, Mr. Robin Noel Brown, he's in P4 as it stands overall, leading the way in the Pro Class then. 0.3 down to Dave Hutchison. More times coming in. Let's ride on board with Robin just for a little while, see how he differs to what Ignace was doing earlier. Something that's pretty important here. Going into turn 5, you can take the car so far off the circuit as Robin does there. That's a valid entry. The left-hand tyre doesn't have to be on the curb. It can be quite far over to that right-hand side, which allows you to really open up the corner, get back on the power into 6. Then you can sweep over to the right-hand side. Pretty much flat out, I think, if you get the turning right here over the crest in through down toward Hurry Downs, turn 8. A pretty tricky braking zone. I'm sure we'll see some drivers making some moves there in the early stages of the race. Not making use of all of the exit there on the right-hand side because you want to get yourself back over to the left to maximise the speed. Got to keep the minimum speeds up here. Robin doing a pretty good job to get back on the power and through. And now we'll see as he heads through the kink. This could be an improved lap time by the current Pro Class leader. I wonder what was going on there, Dara, with a few of those drivers returning back to the pit lane. Lucchese and Winchesewski's both back out on track, but it's not common that we see 2 lead drivers doing 1 lap and then jumping back to the pit lane both at the same time, ironically. And Dornobreger into the pit lane.
Yeah, it's interesting to see them come down pit lane, especially with it being a longer lap as well. It kind of makes it just a little bit more intriguing, doesn't it? Also interesting that we've got Robin L. Brown up towards the front in that elite class. He will be looking to go well. David Daniels, though, sets, I think it says 0.00, but it could be 1,000th faster than the time that Robin L. Brown set. Are we going to see an improvement here? Of course, this is basically the end of the second runs of drivers that didn't necessarily get the lap time done on the opening run. Noel Brown says, oh, that's a 4.7. I thought for a second he'd gone fastest, but as it stands, David Downs and Robin L. Brown have set apparently exactly the same lap time, which is incredible. Kalle Leskinen in the number 1. He is the championship leader after all, getting it a little bit leery through the final corner. Let's see what his time's going to be.
Yeah, a little Scandi flick by the Finn as he headed out the final corner. That's not going to do his times any good. In fact, it doesn't improve at all by the number 1 Porsche. He's got to go again. He really has to improve. P8 for his championship order would not be the best of qualifying sessions, especially coming into this 1-hour event. Lorenzo Gorgetto, one of our 2 Ferraris, one of our 3 Ferraris, should I say. Is that Alex Fretwell? Has he moved out of the McLaren? Yes, he has. Back into that old familiar RLH Fretwell's livery, which we saw a few seasons ago. So he's had enough of the McLaren and he said, sack this, I'm getting back in the Ferrari. So he joins the 2 Italians, Biagio Cutrale and Lorenzo Gorgetto. And now Alex Fretwelle, perhaps we should start calling him, in that Italian machine. He heads around turn 8 and turn 9, currently inside the top 5 in class. Still nothing separating the 2 runners there, David Daniels and Robin Noel Brown. Luke Lucchese, Daniel Handover in the top 2. I don't think we've seen him on the front row of the grid in the elite class so far this season. Cracking lap by the number 143.
Yeah, good to see him benefiting and getting himself right up the order. It's going to be an interesting starting order if it was to finish like this, but there are still some times left to be set. Fretwell is one of them as he comes around the final few corners. Interesting to see the mix of cars, isn't it? A more McLaren and Ferrari heavy Pro Class and a more Acura, I think you said Acura there, Acura and Porsche dominated elite class. Interesting to see that kind of not relationship, but the duality between the 2 classes. Can Noel Brown improve in his Porsche towards the front of the Pro Class? Jeffrey Darman's improved in the pro class, up towards P13. Whereas Harper also joined the top 10 in the elite class. But for Robin Earl Brown, he'll be looking to get himself just that little bit higher up the grid. And by that, I mean P1, because there's nothing to separate the top two for the time being. What's the lap time going to be for him? Doesn't look like an improvement yet. Looks like he's going to stay in P2. He'll go again, though, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, David Daniels pulled over to the right-hand side of the track. He didn't improve either. Kalle Leskinen, can he disrupt those two at the front? He does improve, but it's not enough to take even one position. This will be Kalle's final flying lap here. It's now or never if he wants to get an improved start. Johan Brandenburg, currently P19 in the elite division. He only needs 3 or 4 tenths to get himself into the top 15. Is it going to be enough as he comes down over the start-finish line? Doesn't look like it's an improvement for the McLaren driver either. Here comes Joshua Ness. Can he do anything to get inside the top 5? He needs less than half a tenth of a second to do one over Fretwell. That will make it a McLaren 3-4-5 if he can do that. Let's see then. Joshua crosses the line. Is it going to be an improvement here? No, it's not. A valid lap time. No Wandara seemingly able to improve in the final stages here.
No, it looks like some of those early lap times are going to be very much important by the end of the session. In fact, we've watched the third fastest time of the session on board so far, which just goes to show that we haven't seen too many improvements right towards the end. Thomas Pugh will be looking to improve in his Mustang up towards the line. The X-Axis Sim Sports driver needs a few tenths to even get into the top 17 here. Is there any improvement for him in that 1, 2, 3? Doesn't look like it. And will stay in P18, which is really the ideal place for him to be. Tristan Denobrica may be going again, though, in his 170. Of course, he came into the pit lane earlier in the session. Will be able to go again now. A couple of tenths off of provisional pole could make it another 1-2 for the RDSA team, who have been so consistent so far this season.
Yeah, we've got William Humphrey about to cross the line for his final lap time. Keep an eye on that P9. Is that going to change? No, it's not. Not an improvement there, nor an improvement for Fretwell. Come on, boys, give us something to work with here. We've got a few drivers coming around the corner into their final laps now. It's going to be pretty close. Fretwell still has 2 more laps to go. Tjek Plug, he's one to watch. He's inside the top 4 in the championship. In fact, let's watch him as he comes around the final corner. I think, is it the leading Corvette? Potentially, yes it is. The leading Corvette in the field then. Wants to get himself in the top 3 in the championship. Trying to get himself in the top 5. I was about to say the top 10. But he does a massive improvement. That's what we needed by the 177 Dutchman. Gives us something to work with. That's a shake-up in the order. Demotes Justin Eloff, separating him from his teammate Denobrica. That's Plug inside the top 5 as Luke Van Gortel crosses the line. What about top 10 for Luke, perhaps? Is that too much to ask? Yes, it is.
Yeah, we'll stay in P13 for the time being. At least still a couple of drivers coming up the line. Alexander Fuigter, Racing Republic's driver. Well, that's not going to be an improvement at all in that Mustang. He will maybe look to go again. That might be the end of his session there as he slows across the start-finish line. Ashley Brooks in the DXT purple entry. He's looking to get into the top 10. He's only 5 thousandths off at the moment behind another McLaren in the form of Danny Phillips. Is there any improvement on this lap time as he runs up towards the line? Just go under the bridge. Feels like you're going to go over the bridge at one point, but then, of course, the track levelling out as you approach the line for Brooks. Is it going to be a levelling out of a top 10 result? The answer is no. And he's going to stay where he is. Maybe able to go again, though. We'll wait and see.
Yeah, I just want to highlight here, Davy Daniels, here he comes. Is he improving sectors? He's improved in Sector 3 on this lap, but that is everything, I believe. Quali mode should be on. There we go. We'll take a look at the sector times. There it is, an improvement in Sector 5 as well. However, 3 average sectors might not improve his lap time. If we get the top 2 in class finishing on the same lap time, that will be something impressive, but we don't have that fortune because he's gone and improved. It's a 3.5, which is 2 tenths quicker than the man in the pit lane, Robin Noel Brown. That all but confirms pole position for Davy Daniels. David Hutchison could have something to say about that. No, he will not. Austin E. Priest moves into the top 7. Alex Fretwell still running, just coming out of the first couple of corners now. Anybody closing in on the start-finish line? Yes. Malcolm Coates coming around the second to last corner now onto the start-finish line. He's currently in P22 in class, but of course a couple of tenths would make a hell of a lot of difference, but he is also not going to cross the line.
No. And you feel like this could be right towards the end of the session. Of course, with Luke King jumping up, it means that Eloff May want to get a lap time in just at the end of the session if he can, but you can see by the number of names that are still somewhat illuminated on the timing tower that there are not many drivers that are left on the circuit as you'd expect. With just the 1 minute to go in this session, Marcel Breitenbach is on a lap time. Well, it's actually not. He's a long way down. Justin Eloff, though, does look like he could be one of the last drivers on a lap if he indeed is. And in fact, he's going to pull off to the side of the road. And that's his session done as well. But as he disappears, boo, Alex Fretwell appears, Joe.
Well, that was not meant to happen, but it did, and it looked quite good. So Fretwell will take over. He'll come through the kink at turn 11, through Kettle Bottoms down toward 12 at Canada Corner on the brakes. I'd be curious how much practice Alex has got in this McLaren. It wasn't, I mean, I didn't see it in the server, if he made anyone aware. So maybe it's a last-minute switch for the 52 machine. P8 at the moment needs to find, well, not even a 10th, really, just a very, very fractional amount of time to get himself up one place. Let's see if he can get himself a 10th and a half. That'll be good enough for the top 6. Fretwell, one of the last competitive drivers in the Pro Class, yet to set... Sorry, that can still improve, should I say. Does he do it? Sadly for him, no, he does not. And Marcel Breitenbach was also there, but he too has reset back to the pit lane. And remember, Dara, we're the real cheese people.
We are. We really are. I think Rob Mackay may be using that slogan on the car for his next track guide for our Sunday night European GT Championship. I'm not too sure. It's just a rumour at the moment. But we are up here in Wisconsin. And I know I mentioned to you, Jay, before the race, before we got started tonight, that I was going to get up in the middle of the night to watch the NFL draft. Well, that's happening in Wisconsin. So everything's happening in Wisconsin tonight. It's incredible.
It's very good. Very, very good. So then, looking just in behind there, the cloud coverage is getting a little bit worse, and it's getting a little bit darker out there, not quite as shiny as it was during practice, which is a little bit of an omen, I think, for what's to come. And as all of our drivers now load up onto the field, we will run you through our grid, our one and only grid, should I say, for this 1 hour feature race. So, taking the front row of the grid is Mr. Luke Lucchese in an all-familiar position with a time of a 2 minutes, 3 seconds, 1:05 for the 124 South African driver. This time, not an RDSA front row lockout. Daniel Handover is the man separating he and Tristan. He will share the front row alongside Mr. Lucchese. Tristan Dobriger and Ignas Vinciszewski's will share row 2 ahead of Tjek Plurg and Luke King. It'll be Justin Eloff finishing the 4 RDSA drivers inside the top 7 ahead of Alexander Burt in P8. Our lead pro driver of Davy Daniels is in P9, less than half a second away from the pole time. Very, very commendable lap by the Belgian 26. He'll start alongside Hayden Miller, who will be inside row 5 in the top 10. William Humphrey and Raz Harper will start ahead of Robin Noel Brown and Dave Hutchinson, with Paul Cowlishaw and Gilles Philippart inside the top 16. Luke Van Gotel and Jean Breitenbach will start ahead of Kalle Leskinen and Bjorn Klassens. And it will then be Dominic Hoversanity and Biagio Cutrale inside row 11, with Quinton Verdonk and Austin Ypres in P24. Alex Fretwell, Joshua Ness, Joshua Cohen, Chris Jennings, Danny Phillips, Ashley Brooks and Stephen Codman in a little bit of a pro cluster there. That will be exciting to watch ahead of Joran Brandenburg, slightly out of position, but just ahead of Thomas Pugh, his fellow elite driver there, 1.4 seconds off the pole time. Lorenzo Golgetto will start ahead of Matt Hoyland. Not sure that's the best qualifying that Matt would have hoped for. He'll start ahead of Clyde Veyer and Jeffrey Darman. It's Evan Main and Jakob Klafek ahead of Alexander Freuter inside the top 40. And as we scroll through, just a couple more names to go through. We've got Marcel Breitenbach, Jimmy Vyman, Victor Van Zeist and Malcolm Coates on row 22. Miles Owens, the last of our elite drivers there, nearly 2 seconds off the pace, with Jordan Ellis, Lawrence De Dapper, Lawrence van der Water, 2 Belgians there toward the back. And then our Puerto Rican number 3, Yun Gonzalez, rounds up the back of a 49 car pack, 50 if you want to include the pace car. And it's a lot of drivers to deal with. Those clouds coming overhead, pressure on, I think, Dara, in these early stages, not to make a mistake. You've got to save those for when the rain comes.
Yeah, exactly. You want to keep yourself involved in the conversation, because the second you leave it and the rain starts falling, then you could find yourself exponentially losing time to those around you. So it's going to be absolutely critical for everybody, really, to stay firmly in contention in this race. Excuse me, if we see a few drivers dropping down the early on, the likes of... Excuse me, goodness me. The likes of Ignace, who has struggled in the races so far this season, then it's going to be a little bit more difficult for him to get back, because the second we get to that rain, the field spread will be increased. It'll stretch out, the slower cars become that little bit slower, and if you're a quicker car further down the order, it's going to be more difficult to get around those around you. So yeah, it's critical not to make a mistake early on. And even though this isn't an evening where we have two 30-minute races, it's almost going to feel like that in the opening stages, because drivers won't want to make that early mistake.
Yeah, well, just looking at this, it suggests that those clouds more on the southeast side of the circuit, so that will probably arrive at the pit straight before anywhere else, which is probably the better place to have it. You wouldn't exactly want it the complete opposite. You would not want the rainfall to arrive at the carousel. That would make it extremely tricky. So some of those guys might have an opportunity as they come around turns 12, 13, 14 to make a decision to come into the pit lane. You can see there on this rear cam the split between the clouds on the left and the clear skies on the right, which is good news, I think. Turn 9, 10, 11, not the place that you'd want to deal with rainfall for the first time. And as I said, might give the drivers a chance to dive into the pit lane a little bit sooner, hopefully make the right call. But we've seen in the past hour, of course, people making those decisions a little bit too soon, which of course can be more costly than what it was worth in the first place, really.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's going to be one of the main risks and one of the main parts of the race that we're going to have to keep an eye on all the way through. It's going to be very exciting indeed. But as drivers get ready to get off the line, I think that their initial priority has almost certainly just got to be, you know, keeping themselves safe in the opening couple of corners. Easier said than done, especially with a field this big. But turns 1 and turns 3, along with turn 5 as well, can be tricky places, and I'm sure we're going to see a couple of drivers off the road at some stage.
Absolutely right then. So the pace car will head into the pit lane. As always, it will be over to the 124 South African to get us underway. We'll be racing pretty much as soon as the green flag drops then, and we'll not ride on board with this cam because we'll get lost in behind the trees more than likely. So the pack will squeeze up, the drivers will prepare themselves, and Luke Lucchese will be ready to drop the hammer. It's going to be any second now. And we're underway, we're racing, and a little bit of confusion there, I think, for Daniel Handover in behind. He knew that he couldn't overtake before the start-finish line, and he's almost lost out. In fact, he has lost out that inside line to Tristan Obliga. Are we going to see a 1-2 RDSA? Is that contact? No, it's not. They've just about made it through the corner. It looked very close indeed as those drivers made it through turn 1. Then we've got the rest of the pack now all flowing downhill in toward turn 3. Too wide pretty much everywhere. No one being too risky, nothing going 3 wide. There's Matt Hoyland in the Audi ahead of this Ferrari. Everyone making through so far, no one to report, going awfully down the order. We'll summarise the race positions in just a moment, Dara, but a very clean getaway from pretty much all of the field here.
Yeah, and good to see that, really. Let's see if it holds at turn number 5. No, it won't. There's a car already around. That's going to be, I think that's one of the RDSA drivers. It's Justin Denebrega, Justin Eller. Justin Denebrega's not a driver, it's 2 of the drivers on the same team. But it is one of the RDSA drivers, and you can see Eller just struggling with the car to get it back onto the road, and it looks like there's something wrong with the rear end. There could be big damage there, and Justin's race really over before it began. Not what he wanted at all. But yeah, there's definitely damage on that car. He can't get up to speed properly.
Yeah, he couldn't get it back onto the tarmac, and I think got a little bit of crabbing going on potentially toward the back of the order. Yes, you can see it's just crabbing over to that right hand side. That's going to be terrible for Justin because he's going to have to come into the pit lane more than likely as all the drivers filter their way through the kink for the first time. The top 4 remain the same. Lucchese ahead of Handover, Denobliga and Vinciszewski's. Then it's Luke King who's made 1 place over Tjek Plug. The battle between RDSA and Vulcan Motorsports continues as we might have expected. Davy Daniels, he's dropped 2 positions off the start, which means he's within the clutches of Robert Noel Brown and David Hutchison in behind them. We've got a 1-2-3 in-field order in the Pro Class, something that we haven't seen an awful lot of in these sessions so far. Normally, we have a pretty standout driver in the Pro Class with a few elite drivers around him. Not the same in this instance. Someone else's round. There's been an issue down here in the final corner. Cars sideways on the circuit. That's Matt Hoyland off to the right hand side. I think that's Ashley Brooks potentially off at the back as well. Jeffrey Dahmer, no, it was Jeffrey Dahmer, not Ashley. And that front right of the Porsche is having a day off. Doesn't quite fancy doing his job, and that's going to be hard to get back to the pit lane. 2 or 3 drivers there making their way back in. Young Gonzalez, he seems okay. He's made up a few places, no damage on that car. We'll try and find out what happened there slightly later on. Hayden Phoenix Miller under pressure from William Humphrey, the closest battle at the moment, which we have on the circuit.
Yeah, I think Jeffrey Dahmer's front right there was almost doing a Dua Lipa impression. It was levitating that much, but we'll see if he's going to be able to rack in that kind of reward. Doesn't really look like it with damage on the car. He'll be a long way down as Aidan Miller is going to be shuffled a little bit further down the orders. William Humphrey did get that move done into turn 5. Brad Harper looking to try and slide it up the inside at turn 6. Again, tricky place to really make a move if you're not committed, but Aidan Miller almost scared off of his racing line, but will hold his position as they work their way through the kink at turn number 7. Paul Cowlishaw just in behind Raz Harper as well. Those 2 teammates, I'm sure. It's not even Paul Cowlishaw, is it? One of the pro drivers working well with Raz Harper, I'm sure, as they run their way through the carousel for the 2nd time in this race. But generally, good to see that most of the leaders getting through safely and still battling in the early couple of laps. They're not settling into their pattern this soon.
Yeah, things going pretty well at the moment. William Humphrey on a little bit of a charge into the top 8. He's up 3 places from the start, and he's already on the back of Alexander Bird ahead. So Humphrey doing what we thought he might. Hasn't had the best qualifying session, but his race pace has always been there. The Vulcan Fastness livery looking pretty good out there, I must say. On the circuit, of course, I'd be biased, but it's making its way up the order nicely. Luke Lucchese under a little bit of pressure here from Daniel Handover, not what we expected to see. Tristan Dobliger needs to do his teammate a favour here and start putting a little bit of pressure on the McLaren while he can. But look at this, Daniel could be setting up for a move here. Lucchese's going to make him go the long way around if he wants it. The overspeed that he's got is crazy in a straight line. Lucchese sends it deep and they do make contact. You could see that one coming, really. Is that going to open the door for Nobrega slightly? Yes, it is. Up the inside comes Nobrega, and that will be Ignis, who's going to look to get a good exit. More door-to-door contact. It's gone from bad to worse for Handover there. He was looking like, well, he was in the lead of the race for a moment, and now he's down in P4.
A bit of a handover of position, really, wasn't it, for Ignis to get up the inside at turn 3. Wasn't really much that Daniel could do, but he's going to go back up the inside at turn number 5 as they go through the little kink of 4. He's got the run, he's got the line, and he's later on the brakes. Ignis is going to have to walk it around the outside. The up and under not particularly effective here, and you're seeing it there clearly. As Ignis will look to go up the inside, actually will go up the inside. Oh, a little bit more contact as wide off the road goes Daniel, just about making the corner was Ignis, but the inside line goes to the privateer, and he's just about going to keep himself in the top 3. Great fighting between the 2 of them, a little bit aggressive. Ignis is flashing the lights, but I'm not really too sure why, because he was the one who made the aggressive move to the inside and only just about made the corner.
Yeah, in my book, that's great racing, great defensive display by Handover, and then of course came through that right-hander, sort of chopped the end off a little bit of the Acura in behind, which is probably where the flash of the headlights came from, but all's fair in my view. So good stuff by Daniel, not to be made a meal of there. He went from race lead to P4, managed to recover into P3. However, that's going to allow the 2 RDSA drivers at the front to do what they do best. They're going to work in tandem, work together, and try and build that gap over the rest of the field. Gilles Philippas has had a little bit of an incident. In comes an absolute flying John Brayton back there, who just about keeps it out of the gravel trap, but that was very late on the break. I think the 172 misjudged that one completely. He's lucky not to have taken anybody out in that instance, I think.
Yeah, lucky that everybody's still pointing in a straight line. It's good to see from that little moment, with only 6 minutes or so gone off of the clock and still a very long way to go in this race. John Breitenbach has a long way to go, but he has to defend from drivers around him. He's close behind Dominic Horvath-Sandy, but that's not going to necessarily make it too easy for him. He's got Biagio Cutrale, the first of the Ferraris, right behind him, who's trying to get off to Kalle Lefkonen, who's the car ahead of Breitenbach, but move into turn 1. Difficult to really make a move at turn 1. You can look for it to the inside, but it's such a short braking zone and quite an early turning point. It can be very easy to misjudge it, go deep, hit the car that you're trying to overtake, and it all goes, catastrophically wrong. So smart from Cutrale just to sit in behind and wait, but it's a case of how long do you want to wait? Of course, you want to make a move, but you've got to be careful in these early stages.
Absolutely right. Then we ride on with the leaders in the pro class. Davy Daniels defending against Robin Noah Brown. Davy inside the top 3 in the championship. Robin Noah Brown not anywhere to be seen in his championship at the moment, so in a little bit of unfamiliar territory for the number 21 at the moment. Of course, promoted from Split B last season, so very good to see Robin competing so highly in this championship. Had a great time, absolutely dominated the championship this time last season, and putting on a good display at the moment inside the top 2. He's got the 2 DDK drivers around him at the moment, though. Of course, David Daniels. In fact, no, it's not. They're not Team Mistara. Oh, yes, they are. It's Raz Harper. I'm looking at David Hutchinson. It's actually Raz Harper in behind. He's going to want to put a little bit of pressure on him in the elite class, wants to get himself through, and then once he does, with his teammate up ahead, make it easy for him. I'd like to think he'll probably let him get on with it if he's got the qualifying pace, of course. Hayden Miller, not too far up the road, and Tristan Dobriger on the back of Luke Lucchese. Is he going to get the run here down toward turn 1?
Let's find out. It's a better battle to have, isn't it? Or better problem to have for teammates to have to fight each other towards turn number 1. So I don't think they're going to be overly annoyed by that. But I can't imagine that Dobriger's going to go for it here unless he has a massive lie on the inside. In fact, he probably will with the amount of slipstream he's picking up. But in the end, I think he's just going to nearly go for the bump draft. Going to lift off before they get into the braking zone. Would not be surprised if they don't want to fight here. I mean, Daniel Handover's just in behind and going faster than them, only less than half a second now. And there he is, large in the mirrors of Tristan Dobriger. So probably not too much of a surprise to see these two working together, because if they start to fight, they lose the lead, then it becomes a much more difficult race to manage. And this is a race that I think they will want to manage from the front.
Yeah, you've given me flashbacks there, Dara. I'm not sure when it was. Was it in the GT4 season where, right at the end of the race, these two came together? Or it might have been in... Yeah, it must have been in GT4. We had Tristan and Luke coming together at the end of the race through the exit of turn 3, and it cost Luke the race victory. So these guys have been here before. They don't want to, mix it up too much. Dobriger doing exactly what we might have expected there, gaining and gaining in the straight line. I wonder if that's setup related potentially, or is the drag just that good? We'll soon see. But you don't want to distract your own teammate from his racing line, obviously, especially, as he said, while you've got a challenger of Daniel Handover, who's got the pace around these parts, it seems, so close in behind. In fact, he's a little bit closer to Dobriger than Dobriger is to Lucchese. So we might see a little different approach here. If Tristan thinks that Davey's going to get him, that Daniel is going to get him, then he might say, come on, Luke, you might have to let me through here, because it's clear that I think Tristan might just be a little bit quicker than his teammate who's currently leading this race. Yeah,
it could be an interesting conversation to be had between the two, because all of a sudden, with Daniel Handover not just in the battle, but basically climbing over the rear end of Tristan, it means that Luke is now the one under pressure to either get a little bit faster, or Tristan's going to have no other choice but to try and make a move here. And they'll go up towards turn 1 again. How good is this slipstream? I mean, you'd imagine that Tristan's going to get close enough to Luke that he will have to make a decision about going for the move or backing off again, and Daniel's just getting closer and closer and closer. Pulling out of the slipstream goes Tristan. It's just going to allow a better run for Daniel, and inside is where Tristan's going to have to go. Oh, there's a little bit of contact in the teammates. Through goes on 1, through on 2, and Daniel Handover, well, the teammates almost try and keep out of each other's way, get in each other's way, and allow the McLaren to just take the lead on the inside. Incredible for Daniel.
Yeah, that must feel great. Inside the cockpit, you've been frustrated after giving up that race lead, and now within a couple of laps he's got it back. He's got work to do still, though. Dobriger hunting him down right in his gearbox as they approach the downhill braking zone into turn 5. Dobriger, is he going to think about it? He's not quite got the overlap just as he turns in. Yes, he does. Slight door rubbing between the two of them. All's well at the moment, I think. That's right on board from the chopper. Luke Lucchese sitting pretty at the moment, not wanting to do too much around the outside. Holds that position. Does Handover. Great racing for the lead of this race. It's kicking off further down the pack, so we'll have to go and catch up with those guys in a moment. But a great set of corners there from the 143 to reclaim that race victory, which he held for just such a short amount of time. And let's see how long he can hold on to this one, with two of the fastest drivers in the series bearing down on him in behind.
Incredible for him, for Daniel to get himself into the lead. The really difficult thing is now to get away. The slipstream effect is really big here, with there being such long straights. The race really doesn't feel like an hour at Road America, because he spends so much of that time at full throttle almost waiting for the next braking zone. So Daniel Handover now has to try and pull that gap out and stretch 5-6 tenths, because again, that will become an exponential benefit to him. The further and further Tristan gets away from him, the less and less gain he's going to be able to get down those straights. But the difficulty is, with so many straights around here, the space in which you can make that gap work for you is quite narrow, and it's probably from turn 5 all the way through the carousel and the kink. He's not built it up that much as they get out of the final corner, and it means that he may come under pressure from Tristan, but coming under more pressure, it seems that Ignace may be going for Luke here for P3, as the one-time race leader, the race leader just a lap ago, looks like he's struggling a lot at the moment.
Yeah, we really need to get off this because there's lots going on down the order, but it's so enticing to stay on board. I think that's going to be it for a little while. This pack of 4 has become 2 packs of 2 at the moment. Denobriga putting pressure on the race leader. Vinciszewski's putting pressure on the podium, but this pack in behind, Raz Harper, Davy Daniels, Robin Noah Brown, Bjorn Claessens and Paul Cowlishaw really starting to heat up, of course. It's P12, the top 12, just in behind the 2 race leaders in the pro class, in the pro class, yes. And then Raz Harper has got himself through on his teammates, so we saw that just a couple of laps ago. That exchange of position has been made already, so that lead, green and silver Acura, is the elite driver. Then it's Davy Daniels, the pro class leader, closely followed by Mr. Robin Noah Brown. We've got Joshua Ness under pressure here from Danny Phillips, who goes down the inside on 1, close to his teammate there. Sorry, that's not Joshua Ness, that's Ashley Brooks, losing 1 place there. The Axis Sim Sports driver nearly coming together. Joshua Ness, Joshua Cohen, the X and the Y Sim Sports drivers. Lots and lots happening here. Pressure still on, and it's Luke Van Gortel, who I think has just got himself past John Breitenbach up into P14 in the elite standings. Fingers crossed it stays like this, because there's lots and lots of action up and down the circuit. Some flashpoints here further down the order, outside the top 30. Steve Codman defending against Malcolm Coates. Over a while, the top 5 still kicking on. William Humphrey, a quick word for him, under a little bit of pressure by Hayden Miller, but up 5 places. Bjorn Claessens is up 7, and aside from that, there's no one in a very competitive place who's gained more in these opening 15 minutes than the 198 has. So great start here by the Vulcan Fastness driver.
Yeah, let's see if he's being able to, going to be able to get himself towards that top 5 and towards that group at the front, which seem like they are going to be fighting for quite some time in this race. And with the guy, oh no, as John Breitenbach goes around a Canada corner, there must have been contact there. It's very irregular to lose the car and go straight on this. There must have been contact with somebody else. Really disappointing for him as he spreads gravel all over the circuit. However, I was just going to mention that getting into the front trend is going to be important, but the rain looks like it's coming relatively soon. Now, what happened to John? Did he get a hit from behind? It looks like it's Kalle Lesko. No, he just goes deep. He just goes deep, and by avoiding the car in front, of course, having to go deep. Doesn't get the car stopped before the barrier, though.
Well, he went deep in the same corner on the first or the second lap, didn't he? And I wonder if that's maybe... is he practicing in a different condition, perhaps? Does he think that he can push the brakes a little bit further than he could? Has he been short-sighted, perhaps, by the Porsche in front? I think that's probably the more likely of those scenarios. But yeah, John was a little bit deep earlier on, a little bit deep again, and sadly for him, he's got to now go all the way to the pit window, missing that front end of the car, which won't do him any favours down these straight sections. It won't do him any favours at all. That's Hayden Miller up past Alexander Bird, who's now under pressure from Raz Harper, feeling the need to defend. Raz giving a little bit of a jink in behind, trying to put pressure in the mirrors of the McLaren. Is he going to try and think about it? Very close into the carousel. Did think about it, but couldn't get that one done. These are definitely the closest battles that we have on the circuit as it stands. There is a good battle between Thomas Pugh, Quinton Verdonk, the Vulcan drivers and the Sim Sports drivers going well and doing battle further down the order. Luke King putting pressure on William Humphrey, it seems, at the moment. So that top 6 might be about to come undone. Hayden Miller has got past him there, actually, as they headed just in front of this camera. There it is, the Acura up past the white RDSA Porsche.
And another good move in the end for him, but it's difficult really to see how RDSA have set the car up. Maybe they've gone for that slightly wetter setup because they don't necessarily look particularly good in a straight line. So they may have favorited the back end of the race, but it wouldn't necessarily explain their qualifying pace. Daniel Handover still going faster though, 3/10 faster than Crystal on that lap, 9/10 faster than Luke Lucchese, and again we can see it clear as day. Alexander Burke getting a great run towards turn number 1, as is Raz Harper. Are they both going to come through? Harper's going to try it on the outside line, but maybe a little bit of superior grip through the corners for the RDSA driver, getting himself, or keeping himself inside the top 9. Bjorn Clarkson's now looking for the move on Raz Harper. It's getting a little bit tricky, and that window wiper is moving. I don't think, it's not rain just yet. Looking at rain falling, but not quite to this point. It just goes to show RDSA clearly have gone a different way, because there is a running theme with all of their drivers. We don't often see that.
No, you're right. I think it's pretty... Oh, never mind. Up the inside goes the Mustang. Is he going to make it happen? No, he's not, but please don't turn on each other. He has got that one done. It didn't look like he was in the right position there, but he's got up the inside, which will favour him into the next left-hander at turn 6, and just about keeps it in a straight line with Raz Harper. Is that Raz Harper or is that David Daniels? No, that is Raz Harper. David Daniels just in behind. Got to be careful here. He's leading his race. Can't afford to drop it with Robert Noah Brown so close in behind. And then Noah Brown has his teammate of Cowlishaw right in behind him. Cowlishaw's got the best seat in the house for this battle at the moment as he heads through the carousel. A little bit deep, a little bit wide by Robert Noah Brown ahead. Is he struggling with those left-hand tyres? Potentially so difficult around this circuit, especially through 9, 10 and 11. It does take a little bit of a beating as you head through this section. Cowlishaw just dropping off the back of this one a little bit, but I think Davy's got to be careful being so close and behind his teammate, while he's got to be conscious of having his challenger in behind him. And is that rain, Dari? Yes, it is. Rain on the screen. Let's see. Denobriga, Handover are going to stay out surely, because it'll take a little while for the track to dampen up. But rain here, I think, a little bit sooner than some of these drivers might have predicted. 40 minutes left to go, and as we've just talked about, the setups of the RDSA drivers could be about to pay dividends here.
Yeah, let's see if this is where the race turns for them. We're not even 20 minutes into the race, but Daniel Handover has that handy lead. It's just a case of whether he can hold it as we get into this transition phase. It's going to be really intriguing as well to see when drivers decide that it's the good time to come off of this dry tyre, go onto a wet tyre. That is going to be the meaningful change in this race. There's not going to be any other time for pit stops. Biagio Cutrale coming in this early. I'd say that it's one lap at least too early to come into the pit lane, but in the Ferrari maybe he might feel like he will be struggling that little bit more. But the fact that the championship leader Kalle Leskinen has come in maybe suggests there's a reason to come in this early with the rain falling.
Yeah, well, if he follows tradition, we all know the Finnish drivers master the weather quite well. So is it a little bit too early? Yet to see. It will take a couple of laps for the track to dampen up, but what is for sure, Dara, is that the rain is not going to let up, which is something to consider. Of course, sometimes you might have a rain shower, which might pass very quickly. It was what we saw when I was over in Spa at the weekend. The rain came for the first lap, and then it quickly dried up within a matter of 30 seconds or so. Not good enough to swap to the wet compound, but good enough to be a little bit cautious. However, Kalle will know that the rain is not going to get any better. Lap times will be coming down from this point on, and if he can just suffer with those wet tyres overheating for the next 3 or 4 laps, it could turn out to be the right decision then. So those two, the only drivers in the pit lane at the moment. Who else has joined them? Alexander Feuter has joined them. Justin Eloff has come straight in, which you might expect. I think he was waiting for that to fix his car at the earliest opportunity, so he's back in the pit lane for the second time, actually, whereas the leaders all staying out at the moment. Handover coming around the final corner now. Let's see what he considers there. A little bit of a wobble on the front end, a little bit of a slide there as well. Oh, and a double slide there by Denobriga. Denobriga stays out. Crazy decision potentially. Let's see, Lucchese stays out as well. The two Vulcan drivers looked like they were poised to enter the pit lane. The entire field making their way in, aside from the two RDSA drivers at the front. Let's ride on board with them, see how they get on.
Yeah, and as they run their way in towards the ever degrading circuit, it's going to be a case of how well can they keep it on the road, because they have almost left themselves out alone, particularly of those guys that were at the front of the field. Of course, Cowlishaw and Van Gortel have gone through, but as you can see him soaring at the steering wheel. Is this the right tack to go? Clearly they've made a decision between them that they want to go one extra lap, but will it pay off for them? Vrendenberg coming down the main straight again. He's going to be interesting to watch. I think he's going to be on the pit exit near the likes of Handover. In fact, Miles Owens could be that driver near the likes of Handover. None of them are near. Which is slightly frustrating. You can't really see too much of comparison between the drivers, but a little bit of a slide. Still sunny, but that spray ever increasing. No, I think this could be a good strat for the RDSA boys to stay at that one extra lap. Although having said that, actually I'm not too sure.
Well, the last lap time for these two was a 2-minute 8.94. Luke Lucchese was an 8.7. So let's keep our eyes on that high 8s to deal with at the moment, and we'll see how those drivers who swapped to the wet compound do. Where's Lucchese gone? He's dropped right off the back of Tristan. He was a matter of seconds behind him. Now he's nearly 8 seconds off the back. So this hasn't gone to plan, at least for Lucchese, it seems. Most of the drivers now back out on the circuit. William Humphrey putting pressure on Ignas Vinciszewski's then. Is this in the run down and toward turn 5? I believe it is. Let's see how they get on offline, the pair of them. Humphrey's got to be careful not to go over to the curb, because that's going to be pretty treacherous. Ignas defends well, maybe not expecting William to be so far to the left, defending the inside line almost immediately, holding him up at the moment while they bring these tyres up to temperature then. Lucchese still surviving, still 8 seconds off the back of Tristan. As you said, Dara, it's looking pretty bright. The spray not too bad. Is the rain still coming down here? It doesn't look... I can't see any rain on the screen. I mean, the simulator should still be raining. I'm sure it is. But no rain there. There we go. You can see the rain again. So potentially some dry patches here or there. Crucially, let's ride on board with Mr. Handover. Here he is. He's coming to the kink, so he's got a little bit of time to catch up. But if I had to put my money on anything, it would be a pretty hefty lead, I think, for the 143 by the time the two RDSA drivers leave the pit lane.
Yeah, I think he will. But let's... you can't get your chickens before they hatch, though, obviously.
No, of course.
I mean, for Luke, well, yeah, obviously. I'm playing devil's advocate, really. He should be able to be in the lead by quite some margin, but let's wait, let's see. You never know. They pull off some kind of miracle.
It builds tension. It builds tension. Oh, there's a slow Porsche.
Well,
he needs to get into the pit lane.
Yeah, that's the number 88. That is Victor Van Zeiss who's coming to the pit lane, but just shows how slow those slick tyres were in the end. There's Lucchese, there's Denobrica. Denobrica's coming off the jacks. It's actually going to be relatively close. It's going to still be Handover in the lead, I think. But it's not going to be by much, or even is it going to be Handover in the lead? No.
Wow. Well, I must apologise.
The thing that made me think that actually it was going to be like that is that Denobrica's lap time was a 2:10. And I know that wouldn't really... Actually, that didn't even make sense because, of course, he came into the pit lane. Either way, it was a much faster lap, and he came into the pit lane much earlier than Lucchese did, so it gave him a chance. I didn't really think it was going to be that far ahead, at least.
Yeah, well, it mustn't have been a very strong outlap then from Daniel, because it looked as though those two were really struggling. Really good call then. Not by much, admittedly. I mean, Daniel was pretty close. The two of them were pretty close. Tristan was only a second or so behind him, and now he's overdone him by about 3 seconds on the track here. So more work to be done by Daniel, and if the RDSA drivers have set up for these conditions, it could be good news for Denobrica at the front, and I know these two will be watching it back. So hey, I got it wrong. You know, you can't say everything. It just looked like it was going to be that way, and good news for them is that they've held on to it. However, Luke Lucchese, he's all the way down in P13, so it hasn't gone so well for the 124. Is that a little bit of damage on the back of his car? Has Lucchese... Yes, Luke Lucchese did have an incident. This was on the previous lap, I believe. Was it? Or was that just... Has that just happened? Oh, it's a spin, I think. I can't tell, to be honest, Dara, if that's last lap or this lap. It says it's on lap 11, and we are on lap 11. No, we're not. No, we're not. We're on lap 12. So this was on the dry tyre by Lucchese. That's what cost him the time against Denobrica. That's where we caught him earlier when we said, oh, he's 8 seconds behind. That's why, because he had a spin locking up the rears into turn 5. That's what's cost him the lap time, and that's what's cost him all those positions now in P11 in class. Bad news for the championship leader. Good news for the man chasing him down in P2, though.
It is, that's for sure. It's going to be a really exciting, I think, second half of this race here, because we don't really know how these cars are going to be acting with each other. Philippe Arts is going for the move, maybe. I mean, Leskinen only went for the move on Fretwell. Very congested down here towards the front end, the podium battles in this pro class, but Leskinen can't quite find his way through, just slipping and sliding at the moment as they get in towards the final couple of corners. They're all converging, aren't they, in towards this difficult right-hander to get onto the main straight, and Leskinen coming lower. Oh, a little bit lower. There was nearly some some bigger contact with Jules Philippart, but in the end they just about got away with it. But they're going to be so close coming down the main straight. Ashley Brooks is in on this as well. We could have 3 wide by the end of this straight, mind you, but Leskinen doesn't look he's got too much straight line speed on the car. He's going to really come under pressure by the time they get into the brakes into turn number 1, and he may be passed around the outside by Philippart.
Yeah, Davy Daniels as well. Where's he gone? I'm looking for him on the timing sheet. I can't see him at all. He's out of the race. He's in the pit lane and out. Is he filling up or is he... Yeah, he's done. He's been in the pit box for over a minute. So the race leader, the man in the top 3 in the championship, out of this race, which hands the lead back to Robin Noel Brown with a 10-second gap. 9.5 seconds the lead over the number 32. So it's all gone in the favour of Robin Noel Brown. Theoretically then, he could play this one quite easily now. Doesn't need to push, just needs to try and manage that gap for the next 32 minutes, and he could get himself the first race victory of the season. So fingers crossed for the 21. I'm going to try and see what happened to our race leader, because that is killer for the man inside the top 3 in the championship, who's now stranded and lonely in the pit lane.
Is isolated somewhat, not really where you want to be, but around this circuit there are so many of these little battles going on. I mean, Plurg getting into the fray, we didn't really talk about him until now, have we? I mean, incredible to see how the rain has changed around fortunes of quite a few drivers at this stage of the race. Outside, is it possible to get it around there for handover? No, Plurg nearly taking advantage by going down the inside, but nothing worked out in the end. And William Humphrey all of a sudden about a second and a half off the lead, if that now, as he closes up to the back of this train. Guardians, they just don't know they've got any pace at all, which is surprising. They've been so consistent so far this season, but to have not really much pace in the dry compared to their rivals, and in the wet as well, it doesn't really make much sense from what we've seen.
Yeah, well, it's really piling on the pressure. William Humphrey not out of this one either. He's had a stellar drive so far. 7 places gained over Sanity for Zero Esports. He's up 14 places from, what would that be, P21 in class up to P7. So a great ride for that. I was looking for that McLaren coming around the outside. Great drive from Dominic at the moment then. Let's see if he can keep on to that one. Once the rain comes, it's anyone's game. As we always say, it's a little bit of a leveler when the track is damp. Humphrey could be looking for a good exit in behind Vinchesevsky's then. In behind Tech Plurg at the moment. Janobliga holding on to this race lead, but he's all alone. He doesn't have the support of his teammate, which has been a little bit of a trait between the two of these drivers so far in this early championship. Janobliga feeling the need to move over to the inside line. Is that McLaren going to fancy the switchback into the braking zone come the following 2? Tech Plurg and William Humphrey in a battle of their own. All of these guys, knowing that they've got a 5-second margin inside the top 5, will be pretty optimistic of a very strong finish. The bad news is they've got to deal with these conditions for half an hour, which is such a long time to not make the slightest of mistakes, Dara. And as we know, one snatch of the brake, one eager press of the throttle, and the day could be over before it's really started.
Could, and that's always the risk, isn't it? But they still continue onwards with all of that risk that they're piling onto themselves further and further as we go throughout this race. Humphrey just trying to find a right line. Plurg absolutely with the wrong line with the second part of the camera. So you can just see all 4 of them just snaking their way across the road. I mean, Plurg in the end looked like he was having an awful line. Gets the best exit out and nearly made a move on a handover going through the kink, and really does. And he actually makes the move before they get towards the kettle bottoms. They're going to be side by side. Can Humphrey get himself involved to the outside line at Canada Corner? It's a difficult place to be, but he's found a right to have that outside line. And if he can hook it, he could get 1. He could get 2 here, William Humphrey. And the man who's been so good in GT4s, showing his worth in the GT3s. He overtakes Daniel Handover, and he's got a good chance of trying to get himself through on Plurg, all in the space of about 15 seconds. Incredible to see.
Yeah, great defence, I must say, by the Corvette. Humphrey looked almost destined to take that position up the inside, and they've come together, and there it is. 1 snatch of the brake, and that's Humphrey round. It was looking so good for him. He's going to get going again. It's not going to be the worst thing for him, but that's not what you like to see. From hero to zero, sadly there for the 198. Got to dust himself down and keep going for that. But yeah, I was going to say, Dara, when we caught on with them going down the kettle bottoms down towards turn 12, it looked like the stuff of nightmares. The spray, nowhere to be seen, no room. and Humphrey made it work. Nearly went around the outside. In the end, though, makes a move on DDK. Comes together. Oh, I'm not sure how the Acura's kept that in one piece there. It looks as though he was destined to spin around, but that has released the top three, and that is going to be those three battling their way to the checkered flag, unless, of course, there's more incidents, which is probably likely to follow.
No doubt about that. This is going to get really quite tetchy, isn't it, in the final 20 minutes? There's still quite some way to go in this race, but so many different parties that are going to be getting themselves involved in this one. Really disappointing, I think, for a couple of drivers to drop down. Davy Daniels, yeah, you can just see pulling off the road into the kink. Got to be careful, actually, because of the conglomeration behind him, but ends up pulling off to the side of the road. Where is the moment? Let's see, through the carousel. Is it a drop of the rear end? It's just a bit of a slide. There it goes. Front end into the wall, and that'll do it.
That will definitely do it, and it did do it. So that's Davey, sadly. That's what happened to him a little bit earlier on. And then I wanted to see if we could find that replay. Oh, there's a big crash here. Let's see. Victor Van Zijs, Ellis, Van der Water, Breitenbach caught up in something. It might just be a coincidence that it's all happened at the same time. Or are they involved in something? There goes Van Zijs, and then in comes Van der Water, and then Breitenbach. Not much of an impact, just a little bunch up there. A little bit of traffic on the exit of turn 5.
Yeah, it does get a little bit congested, as it always does here at Road America, but in the end, oh, they don't go too badly. Oh, big slide. That was handover going wide. In the meantime, actually, Brooks is off the road. Handover did go off the road, though. I'm not too sure how badly he did, but he went wide. He's dropped a couple of seconds, 3 in fact. Hayden Miller's getting a little bit closer. You could just about see him on that shot we had of him snaking his way into the rear end in the same way that Breitenbach did when he went into the wall. So lucky for Handover to keep it together. But he's now dropped off the back of the lead, and all of a sudden Plurg now has a chance. They were over a second behind Tristan not too long ago. Now he's in the slipstream to go for the lead. And we know how good that RDSA is in the straight line. In fact, better than Plurg. That Corvette maybe not too good itself.
Yeah, well, I'm just highlighting the conditions here. In the spray, it's almost, you can't see anything. Both of them wanting to be offline, of course, to try and get that grip, which makes it increasingly more difficult for the car behind to make that move. Yes, De Nebrega does come over to defend the inside line. He's going to make Plurg go the long way around here. It might be beneficial for the Dutchman to just sit and wait for a mistake, as it looks pretty tricky in the cockpit of that Acura up ahead. Then Tech Plurg up 3 places. I don't think he would have found himself fighting for the lead of the race. I would have thought, should I say, that he would find himself fighting for the lead of the race. But with 25 minutes to go, he's in one of the best positions of anyone on the circuit. I was going to go back and see what happened when we cut away from Ashley Brooks, but I can't find it in the timing tower. Mr. Leskinen has had an issue. We'll go back and see what's happened there. Up the inside goes Plurg. We do have a new race leader, and it looks like he might hold on to that one, because there aren't really that many clear overtaking opportunities for the next couple of corners for De Nebrega to make that move back. Great move up the inside into turn 6 by the Corvette, and that is the Vulcan Motorsports Gold driver ahead of the RDSA car. 177 leading the 170, and what a dramatic sort of 10 minutes we've had here, Dara. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's been a little bit manic, hasn't it? There's been no doubt about that. Plurg, I don't really know where he's come from to be able to lead this race. Chris Jennings now going side by side down in towards the tricky left-hander at turn number 5. Oh, big contact. Jennings is off the road, and he's taken another car with him. Oh, awful moment there. Well, not just for Jennings there, but you can see him losing the rear end. It's so easy to do, but once you're locking those rear brake, or locking the rear tyres, that car's going around, and it's exactly what we've seen. Just up in front, we've got Gorgetto getting pushed off the road. Joshua Ness, the culprit there. It is just getting messy and messier. The longer and longer we go, and the boss man, James Bostock, as the car slides off, is going to be absolutely loving this for the amount of clips that we may see post-race.
Yeah, it's well, it certainly is entertaining to watch. I'm not sure it will be awfully entertaining to Stewart. Carlos Shaw, a little bit of contact there. Oh, does so well. Does Quinton Verdonk there to keep it on the tarmac. That could have easily gone onto the grass, and once it's there, good luck saving that one. Fretwell, who's side by side with Luke Van Gortel as they head through Canada Corner. Ashley Brooks was also in a little bit of a melee earlier. It looks like that one settled down. Verdonk has got past Carlos Shaw, but he's still there around the outside, also into Canada Corner. That's a good move. That one is converted. Here's Gorgetto now on Stephen Codman on the outside. Codman's going to defend that inside line nicely through again. Canada corner. Everything happening here. Who was that? Is that Vandenberg off again? Yes, it is. Vandenberg not had the best lap of his career. Sadly for him, the 151, a mistake. I think was at the exit of turn 5 or 6. And now, once again, at turn 12. It's all kicking off here. And Hover Sanity, who was up into the top 7, now slowly dropping back down. And that's contact. Kept it in the right way. And that's Luke Lucchese getting his elbows out, trying to make his way back. He's inside the top 10. Wants to get further inside the top 10 to try and hold on to his championship lead, which at the moment is a little bit dwindling here with just 22 minutes to go.
Yeah, it's looking increasingly likely that this race is going to be able to be called slightly before the end, at least in the pro class, but not for not for all of the positions I was trying to say there, because it is getting a little bit tense as Zanobrika goes backwards. Lucchese is looking to go forwards, but he has to get through on Horvath Sandy as quick as he can. But struggling in this middle phase of the lap. Difficult to find a move through 6, 7, 8, and 9, and 10 for that matter, because 9 and 10 is the carousel. But Lucchese not really being able to do much about this advantage for the Hungarian. And even if he does get through, he's got 7 seconds before he gets up to his teammate Luke King, for another 4 seconds before William Humphrey. So it's just not the good position for the 1-2-4 to find himself in. I mean, Danobric is going to be delighted, and Plurg as well. He's looking at the top 3 in the championship if things were to stay as they are. But it's 22 minutes to go. Such a long time to be sliding around. We're not even halfway through this wet weather period of when the rain started falling. Just to put into perspective, almost how long this period of rain has felt in the last 20 minutes or so.
So here's a replay then of how the lead was taken. It wasn't the best exit out of turn 5 by the Corvette. Got himself sort of wrapped up on that curb a little bit, but still somehow managed to get the speed to get past an Obliga more or less immediately after. And now he finds himself 2-3 seconds in the lead of this race, 3.6 to be precise. Last lap was 2 seconds quicker. This lap, a second and a half quicker. Tech Plurg has some serious pace at the front of the order. Meanwhile, Vinciszewski's will finally fancy getting himself up onto the podium. Of course, he got a P2 this time last week. That was his best result of the season. He could be on for double points, of course. Maximum points on offer in this feature race. So this will really be a good helping for the Lithuanian driver if he can make it happen. P4 would be pretty good. P3, though, even better, of course. The difference in points, as we say, it's one thing in the normal races, but in the 1 hour races, it's a whole 8 points the difference between P4 and P3. So lots for these two drivers to fight over. Thomas Pugh, John Brayton back, and Gilles Philipparts going into turn 1, very close to one another. Very careful. Oh, a little bit wobbly there by the Mustang. That might allow Cowlishaw a little bit of a sniff. No, stays where he is, and it's still good news to Paul's teammate Robin O'Brown. No pro drivers around him. Got now a 21 second margin. I said earlier, Dara, he can just come off the pace a little bit. He's got 9-second gap. It's all good. He's just gone and tripled it. So now he can come off the pace even more if he needed to.
And I feel like, and I may be remembering this incorrectly, but I feel like we've seen before Robin O'Brown in ESR, in wet weather conditions, just doing this kind of storming drive, pulling away from the rest of the pack and leaving everybody for dust. I don't feel like this is the first time we've seen this, which just goes to show how impressive he's been, because he is pulling that gap out at such a rate of knots. Hutchison and Fretwell just having their own little battle with Philipparts, a long way back from them. O'Brown, though, has been on fire tonight, and it's the kind of drive that we'd expect to see from someone who's looking to try and get themselves into the championship fray towards this middle phase of the season. And this kind of drive is absolutely going to do that. Going to put a target on Robin's back. It's a target that he's had on his back in the past. He'll know how to deal with it, but what a drive up to this point. And the question really at this point is, how far can he pull the 20.4 seconds that it's come down to now in the final 19 minutes? He's a little bit caught up behind Luke King for the time being, but if he can get through on Luke King, he's got a 6-second window to drive into that he necessarily need it, though.
Yeah, I think I recall Sebring was the one, at least one of the occasions when O'Brown did well in the wet conditions. From memory, I think he absolutely dominated that race, lapping a lot of drivers. I don't want to give it a number, but he was probably at least 30 seconds clear of the pack. I might be completely wrong, but that's in my mind anyway. And he'll be pleased to see that Alex Fretwell is putting pressure on P2 at the moment, which will only do himself some favours in extending that gap. All the while, gets himself lovely around the outside at turn 1 on Luke King. That's exactly the kind of move that shows the confidence that he's got in the machinery at the moment. Where is that on the timing sheet? Because I'd love to see that one again. This is it. No, it's not, because the timing tower moved. This is the one. Robin O'Brien around the outside at turn 1, made that one stick, and as we say, Dara, that's the confidence that he's got in the car at the moment.
Yeah, it's the move he doesn't need to make, which is, almost exemplified exactly, or really how impressive this move is, because he just has to drive around the outside. I mean, he's made it look easier than it really is. Luke King probably not wanting to get himself into too much trouble himself, as there's a little bit of trouble between Miller and Ignace Zevskis as they run their way in towards turn number 8. Inside line for 8, Miller's going to get him into the top 3, and all of a sudden the 181 is on for a possible podium here. Incredible. Daniel Handover is just in behind this battle. He'll be looking to get involved, but as they continue onwards, they may have to start to deal with the growing threat of William Humphrey if they battle for too long. But just one more line really on Robin O'Brien is the fact that he's able to make those confident moves just shows how much confidence he has in himself, and the fact that he can go around the outside at turn 1 on anybody shows that he feels pretty good in the car. You wouldn't really do that if you the rear end was going to spin yourself around if you pushed on throttle too hard.
Absolutely right then. We'll see. We've got 15 minutes, well 17, left to contend with. That's worth another lap or so. Justin Eloff has just been passed around the outside there by a squirming McLaren who goes straight off the road. A little bit aggressive by, was that Jordan Ellis? No, it was not. It was Jan Brandenburg, I believe. Yes, it was, who rejoins the circuit now then. On the circuit, the only battles that we have, Thomas Pugh pretty close in behind, and he's got John Brayton back on his back for the top 15 in the elite class. Aside from that, it's Hayden Miller who's just got, no he hasn't, he's still holding on to Vincenzewski's. I was thinking it was Daniel Handover who was getting in the way, but it's not. Vincenzewski's thinks about it, moves right, moves left, putting pressure on that Acura. Oh god, he's looked to go deep there and around the outside, hasn't been able to make that one work. As you might expect, these two are going to go right to the end. What we don't want to see though is Ignace pushing a little bit too hard, only for it to cost him once again, as we've seen and as we've said. He's definitely had the pace to be inside the top 3 pretty much every single week, but it's always come undone from him during the race. It was aggressive last week against, was it Davy Daniels last week, I think, who was riding pretty well in the top 5 on the road, of course, leading the way. In the end, Ignace managed to get past him after quite a few laps in behind, so got to be careful. P4s are still a very good result, but as racers, of course, we always want to be one place higher, especially when it'll get you on the podium.
Yeah, it's still though a race that a lot can develop in, hopefully so. As I'm not too sure, Joe.
Now, Jason did just put in the chat that iRacing went into maintenance mode. So, that could be the end of the race. Now, we've never dealt with this before. My assumption will be that we'll call the standings as they are, which I would guess is the only fair thing to do. Let's wait and see, though. Don't take my word for it. Terrible timing for iRacing, of course, to do that. I don't know. That's not normal. Normally, they do maintenance not on a European evening when everybody races. Whatever. Normally, it's like 1 p.m. when the Americans are asleep and when the Europeans are at work, but not on this occasion. So it seems like that's going to be it for us. I'm not sure if we're going to have any standings to run through. It might be worth doing it anyway, so we have a record of it. But sadly, Dara, I think that's going to be our night a little bit shortened by the sounds of it.
Well, I don't know if you could. I mean, if there's a way that we could bring up the standings because they all disconnected. If you I don't know, scroll back on the stream a bit, bring that up. I don't even know if that's possible. Oh, there we go. That would do. I have never seen this before. I cannot tell you the amount of races I commentated over. I have never seen a race ended because our race has gone into maintenance mode in my life.
Well,
This is wild.
yeah, I mean, well, we had 15 minutes to go. We've ran over 75% of the race distance. We're not going to be able to rerun the race. That's definitely not something. I don't want to speak on behalf of Mr. Bostock and Mr. Mackay, of course, but the three of us will come up with a solution. My vote will be to take it as it is, because I think that's the fairest thing to do. So for the benefit of that, just in case that is the decision that we make, we will run through the order so that we have a record of it. The other possibility, of course, is that we null and void the race. Clyde Veyer in the chat saying he planned on making 5 overtakes, so we've got to account for that as well, obviously. I'm sure many of these drivers plan to overtake 20 people, so maybe everyone's a winner. You never know. But let's stop waffling. Let's run through the order. I'll get Discord running, see if we've got any crack going on, but sadly, not much we can do. If it's some emergency maintenance, then we'll have to deal with it. Poor Bostock is going to get a lot of pings, I think. People asking him what the plan is, so I'll keep an eye on for that. In the meantime, let's run through the order that we have at the moment. So Tiek Plug was 3.2 seconds ahead of Mr. Denobliga in, well, I was going to say in the end, wasn't in the end, after 75% of race distance. He wins as it stands for the Vulcan Motorsports Gold Team, ahead of the RDSA esports driver of Tristan Denobliga. Ignas Vinciszewski's will be very, very annoyed because he was 3/10 away from the podium, putting pressure on the Scotsman. In the end, though, Hayden Phoenix Miller was the man to convert that podium ahead of the Lithuanian driver. Inside the top 5, Daniel Handover, William Humphrey, Raz Harper and Luke King in the top 8. Dominic Horvath-Sanity and Luke Lucchesi disappointing for our championship leader inside the top 10. Alexander Bird, Bjorn Klassens, Luke van Gortel and Quinten Verdonk will finish ahead of Thomas Pugh in the top 15. It'll be John Breitenbach and Paul Cowlishaw finishing on the lead lap. Joran Vandenberg, Justin Eloff and Jakob Krafek will be our final point scorers. Sadly for Miles Owens, he was there, but he won't score points outside the top 20. Jimmy Vyman not in a position to finish the race, ahead of Matt Hoyland, who we saw out early doors.
But then in the pro standings, Robin Earl Brown almost certainly going to take home all the points he can in the end from a stunning display tonight from him. David Hutchison, Alex Brightwell should round out a podium provisionally with them a long way back, but very close together between them. Jules Philippart was gaining on those two, but of course that progress being stunted in the Belgian should be P4, of course, provisionally. Kutrali, Jennings Gorgetto, the next 3, 5th, 6th and 7th. There's a lap down for Gorgetto, but not to Robin Earl Brown overall. Joshua Ness, Stephen Godman and Austin Eep, the American, the first of the Americans in this class, rounding out the top 10. Then Ashley Brooks just came ahead of Marcel Breitenbach and Malcolm Coates, the second of the Americans in the race against the game esports. I think most of the drivers are going to be racing against the game this evening, but he was the first of the team to come 13th. Then it's a bit of a patchwork with the Rage Against the Game esports drivers and others. Jordan Ellis, another. Evan Main, a Rage driver. Fuita, another. And then Veya, another Rage driver as they round out the top 17. Then you've got Victor Van Zeist, Jun Gonzalez and Lawrence van der Voorta inside the top 20. David Daniels, disappointing for him to be down in 21st. And even more disappointing for Kalle Leskinen, the championship leader, to be down in 22nd. Awful race for him. He's not going to want to watch much of this back.
No, he is not, and I think there will be more drivers. Yes, they are. Joshua Cohen, Jeffrey Darman, Danny Phillips, and Lawrence Zadapa won't score points, depending on what the outcome of this is, of course, being outside the top 20. But that is where we are. Now, what we can do is we could take some interviews. Sadly, no one's waiting for one. So we will give drivers a few minutes. We'll summarise that race, I think, Dara, just generally from the two of us, as we normally do. And we'll see if anyone wants to come for a chat. And if not, then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, where do we start? I mean, a bit prematurely cut off in the end, but a great race up to that point. We saw that dry phase where the RDSA boys looked like they had a little bit of control in the race, and then all of a sudden they didn't. The straight line speed wasn't there. The cornering speed didn't really feel like it was there, and they got overtaken. They got really mugged down at turn 1, didn't they? In the end, and from there it just kind of got a little bit worse. So an intriguing race in the opening stage. Then when the rain fell, it felt like Tristan obviously was going a little bit too long on those dry tyres, but then again, all of a sudden, it felt like when he came out of the pit lane, it was okay. But really weird toing and throwing in a race. We don't often see it in a race of, well, in the end, about 45 minutes, but it had all kinds of twists. You never really knew which way it was going to be going in the end.
Yeah, you're totally right. I think, as you just said, we were surprised by the rain. Maybe not coming as early as we'd thought. I think I was saying to you before the broadcast, Sarah, that it looked as though it could come pretty early, but you're always in two minds, aren't you? Sometimes it disappoints and comes a little bit late. But I think in the end, the RDSA drivers made the right decision. Luke Lucchese making that one mistake, which was awfully costly for him. And yeah, I mean, what a mention for Tjek Plug in the end, of course, to potentially win the race, depending on what the position is that we take. But a great drive from him to get up. Where was he? Well, where we are now, which is on lap 2, he was in P6, having lost one place. So potentially a drive from the top 5 up to P1 in mixed conditions is probably one of the races that he'll go down for. And of course, he could have made a mistake, but he was extending that gap to Tristan, wasn't he, at the front? So he did seem pretty comfortable in that position.
He did, and it was, again, a really interesting way to get towards that point in which the race ended for those guys, and intriguing. I think, actually, you've just put it up on screen. I think we've got Robin L. Brown in the interview booth.
We do, so if you want to go ahead and drag him in, Dara, we'll have a quick word with him and speak, of course, to the race leader when the servers fell. So we'll get a word from him, and we'll see how we found that one.
All right, then. We're going to drag in Robin Noel Brown. You should join us now. Robin, welcome. Can you hear us, first of all?
Hi, Dara. Yeah, I can hear you, mate. How you doing?
Well, welcome. Yeah, we're all doing very good, but sadly, obviously a little bit disappointed with the turn of events there. It was going well, about as good as it could. You had a 25-second margin, of course, but talk us through the race that we had, of course. You had a pretty good qualifying. You were there or thereabouts, but then as the rain fell, it just seemed like you were one with the car, one with the track, and we were saying we've seen that from you before, pretty dominant displays in the wet. So just talk us through the race as it was and how you handled the crossover.
Yeah, pretty pleased with the qualifying. I think that's the fastest time I've done in these track conditions in the car at all. So pulled that one out of the bag at just the right minute. And then, the first phase of the race was really, I was just trying to sit behind Davey. I'm trying to save a bit of fuel. And I also wanted to see what he was going to do when it came to the crossover, when he was going to go in the pits, so that, because the crossovers, because it's such a long lap, if you stay out one extra lap, that can either be the best move of your life or a terrible mistake. So, I was going to go in on that lap anyway, and he jumped into the pits, so I was like, well, I have to go. So that was good. Came out behind him again, and then I think I got caught up with a couple of people, and then I think he lost it all on his own. I think in carousel, which handed me the lead, and then really from there it was just trying to keep it on the track, not spin, not do too many crazy things, and try not to get caught up by any of the elite drivers that were around.
I mean, you just showed some great pace. I mean, particularly towards the end of that phase of the race where until the end of the race, whenever that really came to a point. The pace you had in the wet conditions was really quite impressive. When I mentioned it on broadcast, I don't think that's the first time we've seen you pull away in wet conditions. What is it about wet weather conditions that you feel like you can, master so well? And, if you're happy, to kind of reveal things, what kind of techniques do you use to try and, better your race time in wet weather conditions?
Yeah, so I really like cars that slide around a lot, and these GT3s in the dry punish you for sliding them. Kill the tyres super slow, but when it gets in the wet and the car's moving around a lot more, I much prefer that kind of style of car, of driving style. It's like, I love the Porsche Cup cars because you can sort of drive them a little bit like that as well. So really, but in the wet, stay away from the rubber line. That's the main thing. In most other racing games, well, almost all other racing games, you don't have to do that. But in iRacing, you definitely do. And just, take a lot out of the brakes. Brake a lot earlier, brake a lot more gently. Really get it slowed down, because if you turn at the corner and nothing happens on the apex, that kills your lap time. So those are really the things I try and concentrate on, and then just being gentle with the car and smooth, but embracing the slides.
That's a good way to put it. Embrace the slides and make the most of it. Have a bit of fun as well, because wet weather racing is a bit dangerous, but it's also a hell of a good time. And thinking about that, I mean, it's a great result for you, of course, and it hasn't been the start of the season that I think you'd hope for. From what I remember, you've proven to me, at least on these broadcasts, that the promotion was, of course, justified because of the season that you had last. But you've also been very competitive for the most part. You'll have to remind me. I'm not sure if you've had a few mistakes or a few issues, but I think your pace has been pretty strong. Maybe you haven't had the results to back that up. What's your expectation that if you get good points from this race, of course, double points on offer, that could really boost you quite high up the standings, and then from there, you've got another 6 rounds, or 6 weeks, should I say, to really try and get yourself a little bit further up the order.
Yeah, my target this season effectively has just been to try and get in the top 10 in every race. Couple of the races I've had instance, it's quite different being in the middle of the pack versus being right at the sharp end, as it was last season for most of the races. So you have to be a lot more defensive and to drive a lot more defensively on the early laps, not trying to put in pace to get away from people, just get it all sorted out so that you have an opportunity to overtake. So the first couple of races I've sort of been learning that the hard way, I guess, and then I think the one that I managed to do right in with no incidents, I think I finished P9 in class, which I was fairly pleased with, because I think I started 19th at the beginning of that second race last week. So yeah, the pace hasn't been terrible. Qualifying around the top 5-6 in class, I'm fairly happy with. But yeah, I guess I just want to make sure I'm on your broadcast thing in the results this season. That's my target.
Oh yeah, well it's funny you say that, because I've been thinking that sometimes I forget about the rest of the championship and just focus on understanding what's changing in that top 12. And I was just about to say, with a result like that, you could really, really help your chances of getting in there. So yeah, let's hope we see you there in the next couple of weeks. So thanks for joining us, Robin, the only one who has, so I appreciate that, of course, in these strange circumstances. And before we let you go, as always, if you'd like to give a shout out to anybody, you can go ahead and do that now.
Yep, just big shout out to Paul, who's racing in the elite class for Suma. Also Jim Fox down in the Premier, I think he's in, or he may be in. Yeah, he's in the Premier, isn't he? Definitely. He's been having some good results as well for the Suma team, and Robin, I don't think he's around this week, but he also is, and all the rest of the GP2 Kame guys as well. Keeping the team together, it's growing. It's a really excellent little team and community that we've got going there. So big shout out to those. Also to you guys, as always. I'll be watching the stream back after this, and I always look forward to it after the race. No shout outs for iRacing today though, for going down.
Of course.
Before my maiden win.
Yeah.
Pro, yeah.
That wouldn't be right. You wouldn't even get to take the checkered flag. How devastating. But at least it's looking likely that you'll get those points, mate. So good news on that front. Well, thanks for joining us, as always. I appreciate that, for coming in these different circumstances. And yeah, good luck with your preparation, and fingers crossed we'll see you take the checkered flag in the not so distant future.
Cheers, Joe. Dara, thanks very much.
Good stuff, mate. Thank you.
Good to see Robin getting another great result, because it's been a bit of up and down season in a way in the last few weeks, but again, really impressive drive, and it's just been great to see him working through the order.
It really has. It really has. So it looks as though, I mean, I think I'm safe to say, it looks as though we're going to roll back the standings to the last completed lap, and then go from there. I'll not say any more. I don't know if we're going to give maximum points or partial points or whatever, but it looks as though we are going to score points this round. We've had an example of this in the past. Not quite the same, but we had a server incident where I think the iRacing servers went down, as opposed to it being like a maintenance mode, let's say. and I think we had to null and void that entire round because it was pretty early on in the session. So different case here, I think. So we'll obviously announce that in the server probably tonight, if not tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. And yeah, that'll be the end for us, I think. So it's been a great night. It's a shame that it didn't finish because we would have had a great opportunity to speak to some of our, well, hopefully our race winners. This man in particular, Tech Plurg, who has had a good start to the season. He was inside the top 4 coming into tonight, won the opening event of the season, hasn't been up there since, but he's got himself back on the top step of the podium then. So, before we end, as always, we can take a look at what is upcoming and what is around the corner at Evolution Sim Racing. So, as always on a Thursday evening, myself and Dara and Paul Walsh will be here covering our 120 drivers across our 2 splits of GT3 Season 8, Split A and B. On alternate Sunday evenings, the European GT Championship is well underway. Round 3 was concluded around the Red Bull Ring just a few nights ago. You can join us on the 4th of May, where we'll tackle our first 90-minute race around Zandvoort, which is the first time ESR arrives there. I'm driving in that, looking forward very much to that one. I'm a big fan of the circuit and a lot of Formula driving around there, but never in a GT car. And fingers crossed, our team have done a lot of endurance, so that 90 minutes will, it'll be slightly harder than 60, but I think that might serve us well. So very much looking forward to that one, of course, hosted by Mr. Dara and Mr. Bostock. Then it's the Danny Lee Porsche Cup, which returns this Sunday evening for its second round, of course. Round 1 after Silverstone was a great success. Join us once again for the second round there over on the Apex Racing YouTube channel. And then, as always, Tuesday evenings and Saturday afternoons, the Practice League, free to join. Everybody in the ESR server has an invite to that session. First come, first served to get into that session. We'll alternate between the cars and the tracks from all 3 of our championship seasons. And for anyone who wants to join us, you can go ahead and use Discord GG/ESR or scan the QR code on screen now. That'll take you straight to our Discord server. And finally, a big thank you to our sponsors, Kame, the GP2 Group, Trophy AI, and VRS for their support of this series. And of course, check out the Motorsports UK recommended community guidelines. And before we go, I want to take a quick look at the calendar just so we can get a bit of a feeling about what is coming up next. So the US triple header, COTA and Road America are the next 2 weeks worth of racing, back to the 30 minutes and then 1 hour in dry conditions, and then it's that pretty difficult full wet session around Le Mans. Practice wet, qualifying wet, full races in the wet. Such a long circuit. Looking forward to that one. That's our next 3 weeks on Thursday evening. So thanks everyone for watching. We've tried to extend a little bit to cover the time that we usually do, but that's going to be everything for us for now. And you can catch us this time next week when we return in the sunshine in Texas around COTA. I hope you've all enjoyed. I hope all the drivers enjoy watching that one back, because it was a cracking race from start to premature finish. And for now, that's us. So we'll catch you in a week's time. Good evening, everyone.